Hi, my name is Joanna Whitney. I am an intuitive artist and a student of natural law. And I'm in this sort of in-between place where we were studying the Formal Consensus book by C.T. Butler, and I'm taking this break to, read M. Scott Peck, a Different Drum, which I will link all this information in the description. And I'm just going to take a moment because we're in this interesting place right now where we are still in pseudo community. This is what M. Scott Peck describes pseudo community as, where we exchange pleasantries, but we haven't really gotten down to anything nitty gritty. This group actually probably has gotten down to nitty gritty in the past, but mainly what's happened in the time that I've been involved, which has been maybe like 8, 9 months or more, actually, maybe a year or so. I don't know exactly, but what's happened, as far as I can tell, is that we've split so that our shadow selves, the dark self, exhibits itself on the internet, in chats, and then we exchange pleasantries when we're together in person. It's very interesting, and I would say extremely unhealthy. In a way, what I would say is that the chat group is a tyranny. A lot of the groups are a tyranny. They have one administrator or a couple who are buddies, and although they do have principles, they can use them in an underhanded manner, to get rid of the people they don't like. And so the shadow, all the nasty stuff gets taken care of by people online. There's certain people who never show up in person, who only, witch hunt at night online. And then in person, we have the pleasant group. And then we also have the barter market where people come and barter together and have some fun. But there's something weird about it because of this disintegrated shadow. And so what I'm looking forward to in the in-person group is that we integrate the shadow. And I'm not sure how this is going to actually happen. Sorry, I have a dog here. Let's see if I can see that dog nose. Yeah, I got to get the dog out. Go. Oh God. Anyway, integrating the shadow. So what that would mean is we would move from pseudo community into chaos, which is where we would become the converters and the healers. This is according to M. Scott Peck, but this is my actual experience, honestly, because that's what's going on online, is we're in the converter healer mode, where if you're not converted to my version of the My Freedom movement, then you're not in the freedom movement. You're obviously an informant. Oh, sorry, dog. No. Sorry. You're an informant. If you're not like, if you don't believe in like whatever, right now it seems split, into the QAnons versus the other people in the freedom movement. If you don't believe in all the QAnon stuff and that the white hats are gonna save the world, then you're a government informant or a Khazarian mafia supporter or something like that. So that's what's going on online. And I'd really like to see us devolve into that chaos in person. I mean, I really would. I think it would be extremely healthy, because that's what you have to move through in person in order to get to true community, where if something were to actually happen, where we needed to be there for each other in a personal way. Like, let's say, you know, the Marshall Fire situation. Like if we had some kind of emergency like that, if our shadow has been disintegrated into the online chat and we have never experienced each other in person with an integrated shadow in an emergency, it could be very bad. Unfortunately, it could be unfortunate. Like I mean, it could work in the moment, because usually what happens in an emergency situation is that humans, that integral part of ourselves that is the seed of true humanity, does come out, and we do take care of each other in an emergency situation. But it does often devolve into a tyranny where there's one charismatic leader that leads everyone, and the quiet people haven't practiced coming out, so they may follow the most charismatic leader or whatever, rather than following the inner guidance. So, you know, my hope in creating the in-person group is to integrate the shadow. And so the next phase out of pseudo-community would be into what M. Scott Peck describes as chaos. And then there's a time after the chaos, which there is like a leader, at least one person in the group who's been through it, me probably, and there's another person probably as well, at least, who would kind of hold the space for everyone. You know, you go through this rather long and hard period of chaos, and then you move into this stage called emptiness, where you start to realize that your solutions aren't going to work. Your converting people and healing people isn't going to work, because the only true converter and healer is the higher power. Each individual person has their own relationship to the higher power, and ultimately no human power is going to be able to heal or convert each individual person. That's between them and their higher power. So once the group gets through into that phase, there's a period of extreme angst, I would call it, because it's like an ego death. Each person's individual ego is dying as they realize that they can't tell other people what they should and shouldn't do. And each person also realizes that the group, the spiritual entity that is the group, also is going through an ego death, because although, you know, each person might have had an idea of what the group was about, and you might even have, like, you know, formulated your unity of purpose, statement of purpose, or constitution, the heart and soul of that group has yet to be formulated. And it's being formulated through this process. And then once you get through this process with like one person who remains the rock solid person in the group, then you move into true community. That's what we're going for. Once we have true community, then we can have true consensus. You can have formal consensus without doing this process, but it is kind of dry, honestly. I mean, I've seen it, and I might enclose another link to another video that shows formal consensus with four people that obviously haven't really truly formed community yet. You can tell by how they treat each other. But that's what I'm after. I'm after creating true community, and then using formal consensus as a result of that, because in the formation of true community, trust, respect, nonviolence, and all that stuff will be born into that. As our group is evolving towards that, which I'm sure it will evolve at some point, we're going to be doing some different activities. And the first thing that's coming up next is we're going to be writing our statement of purpose, we're going to be brainstorming our core values and what we want. This is what we're going to lean into when things get really nasty again. We're going to be able to look to our principles and ask ourselves if the conflict that we are currently having is in alignment with our principles. And if it is not, then we don't even have to talk about it. I've seen this happen many times, and it is fascinating. Like something that we think is super important, like I don't know if people remember, maybe it was 20 years ago, maybe I think it was more than 20 years ago, maybe it was 30 years ago that the smoking issue came up. You remember? I mean, a long time ago, you could have private clubs or public clubs where people could smoke in the club. And then I don't know where it came from, whether it came from the state or whether it originated. I don't know where it originated. It might have been a psyop, honestly. Suddenly, non-smoking became like the new thing, and it really wasn't in our principles. Like, it was an outside issue, shouldn't have really been brought up. What should have really happened is the people who wanted a non-smoking group should have just formed a non-smoking group, but instead what they did was they tried to impose their non-smoking thing on the smoking groups. So it caused great division. And but it in some groups they said this isn't relevant. This isn't relevant to our unity of purpose. So they discarded that issue. Now, of course, people might be horrified because how many smokers are there left now in our freedom movement? I don't know. I don't smoke anymore, but I did at that time. I smoked for a long time. But it was probably based on convenience. Like the non-smokers wanted the convenience of the group that was already established, and they just wanted it to switch to non-smoking. But that wasn't what we were unified around. We weren't unified around people's individual choice and freedom to choose whether they smoked or not. It is, because of the inalienable right to self-ownership, I have the right to ingest whatever the heck I want into my body. And if the group was formed around smoking, then that group is a smoking group. And if you want a different kind, you would have to start the non-smoking group. But it caused extreme and great division among these groups to have them suddenly bombarded by this issue, which wasn't relevant to the constitution of the group. And if the group didn't stand by their principles at that time, they could have been fragmented into, like, they could totally lose the group. It would be like they would cast aside their original intent for being together over a trivial issue of smoking or non-smoking, which some people obviously thought wasn't trivial, but those people should have started a different group. So then there would have been non-smoking freedom movement groups and smoking freedom movement groups, but instead they fell for the psyop. And I think it might have been a psyop, honestly, because it caused such great division and it caused so many groups to fold. And this is what we want to guard against, because when the shit hits the fan, we need to be banded together, jabbed and unjabbed. This is going to raise a whole other issue right here. Like, are we in the My Freedom movement, are we gonna ask people if they're jabbed, if they can be a part of our freedom movement? Are we gonna Are we gonna devolve into being divided over people who were jabbed? I mean, maybe, you know, people who were jabbed who regret being jabbed are now going to be a whole other group of people over here. Well, I can't think of the word right now. The people who like regret, the jab regretters over here, they have their own freedom group. Then we, the unjabbed freedom people, and then we have them out there who are like part of the mainstream. I mean, if we want to create community, and if our unity of purpose statement, our Constitution states that we are all about creating community and freedom, then we have to be all inclusive of all people seeking that, regardless of whether they made the mistake of falling for the scam or not. I mean, do we shoot our wounded? You know, do we allow redemption for everyone or not? I mean, are we going to be just like them? Are we going to be slave drivers just like them? Or are we going to stand up for the inalienable rights of all concerned and trust that the Creator is going to take care of us because we are acting in alignment with natural law and practicing forgiveness? You know, these are all things that we're going to have to think about, and why it is important to have principles that are at the basis of our group that we can use when we are challenged, so that we don't fall for these psyops that they're going to impose on us. I mean, I know that there's already people in our groups that are government informants. It's obvious who they are. I can almost name names of who they are at this point. But at the end of the day, are those people going to be? Are they going to be the ones? Are they going to win by dropping in the, you know, polarizing ideologies so that we abandon our principles and act out of fear? Or are we going to band together around our principles? That's the purpose of having a unity of purpose statement. So, yeah, that's what we're going to be developing. And at some point, it's going to send us into chaos, and we'll be moving through into emptiness and into true community. And we'll have a real unity of purpose statement like our forefathers did when they created the Bill of Rights. It's going to get interesting. Stay tuned.